Hey there, Silver Recaps here. Watch out. The story begins with an asteroid colliding with Earth. As the asteroid strikes, people everywhere start saying their final goodbyes to friends and loved ones, because it's clear, the collision will bring the end of the world. Amidst this chaos, a girl named Jo spends the night with her boyfriend James. The next morning, they are driving back to the city in their car. As they drive, Jo listens to the radio, which is flooded with people's reactions to the impending disaster. The asteroid had struck the North Atlantic Ocean, and within 12 hours, the massive storm it triggered was expected to reach Australia. In these final moments of life, people are reacting differently. Some find solace in reading the Bible, while others choose to fulfill their deepest desires before it's all over. The streets are in utter chaos, with people rushing out of their homes in desperation. James, sipping on a drink, reflects on a conversation he had with Jo, cherishing the fleeting moments they've shared. Jo had asked James to stop, but he didn't listen. At this moment, as James was driving, he drank to distract himself and suppress his fear of death. Suddenly, James had to stop the car as a pile of shopping carts blocked the road. At that moment, a man with an axe-like weapon approached the car and threatened him. He claimed someone had betrayed him and that he wanted revenge. He forced his way into James's car and ordered him to drive to a location of his choice. They eventually reached the place where the man's betrayer was supposed to be. Once there, the man took the car keys and told James to wait. James, watching in horror as the man killed someone, panicked. He jumped out of the car and started running. The man chased James, but he hid under a tree holding his breath. He stayed hidden until the man shifted his focus and ran after someone else. When the danger was gone, James retrieved a nail from the car's tire and tried to open the tree trunk for cover. Just then, he spotted a red van nearby and hid as it parked. Two drunken men stepped out, dragging a young girl who screamed for help. They carried her into the house. Once they were inside, James sneaked into the van, hoping to start it and escape. However, as he was about to start the engine, he heard the girl's screams again. He hesitated, unable to leave her behind. The girl's cries grew louder, and James decided to help. He grabbed a hammer from the van and entered the house. Searching the house, he finally reached the door where the girl was held. Suddenly, one of the men charged at him, but James hit him on the head with the hammer. Before James could react, another large man came from behind and wrapped a rope around his neck, trying to strangle him. Struggling, James struck him with the hammer. The man let go, but quickly grabbed a lamp and struck James, knocking him down. The large man slammed James to the ground and started choking him. In desperation, James bit the man's finger, forcing him to release his grip. James quickly grabbed the hammer again and stood up. The man tried to bribe James, saying they could share the girl if James didn't hurt him. James, uninterested, swung the hammer and struck the large man on the head, killing him. After this, James breaks the lock on the door and tells the girl that he's here to rescue her. He takes her outside, but she is terrified and refuses to sit in the red van. She insists she wants to go to her father. Frustrated, James yells that staying outside isn't safe for her. Reluctantly, she agrees to get in the van. On the way, the girl tells James how those two men had tricked her into coming with them by pretending to arrange a meeting with her father. She also describes what her father looks like. While they are talking, James notices that the fuel in the van is almost empty. He feels unsure about what to do with the child. 2 hours later, James hears a radio report stating that America, Mexico, and Canada have already been devastated by the catastrophe. Suddenly, the girl notices her father's car parked nearby. Excited, she starts honking the horn and shouting loudly for her father. James quickly tells her that her father isn't there. She then begs him to take her to her aunt's house, where her father might be. But the aunt's house is very far away, so James refuses and suggests taking her to his sister's house instead. However, the girl insists that she wants to spend her last moments with her father. Left with no choice, James finally starts the van, and the girl reluctantly gets in. Along the way, she tells him her name is Rose. Eventually, James and Rose arrive at his sister's house. Despite ringing the doorbell multiple times, no one answers. James then enters through the back door. Inside, he finds the house beautifully decorated for Christmas. Some family photo albums and bottles of alcohol lay scattered around the house. James suddenly heard the sound of running water from upstairs. Wanting to keep Rose from seeing anything distressing, he suggested she go swimming in the backyard pool. While Rose went outside, James went upstairs to the master bathroom. There, he found the lifeless bodies of his sister and her husband lying on the floor. The sight was unbearable for him. Shaken, he opened a cabinet, grabbed a bottle of alcohol, and started drinking. Standing on the balcony, he looked down and saw Rose swimming in the pool. His gaze shifted toward the nearby playground, where he noticed a fresh grave, his niece's burial site. The realization struck him deeply. Overwhelmed and unable to stay in the house any longer, James decided to leave. He went to the garage to take his sister's car. Just as he was about to leave, Rose saw him and asked to come along. Reluctantly, he let her get in the car. As they drove away, Rose asked where they were going. James lied, saying they were heading to a big party. Excited by the idea, Rose suggested that someone at the party might know her aunt and could help take her home. James didn't respond, keeping his focus on the road as they drove toward an uncertain destination. The scene then flashes back to the past. James is at a beach house, preparing to leave. Suddenly, his girlfriend, Jo, approaches him, visibly upset and in tears. She reveals that she is pregnant with his child. Instead of feeling joy, James becomes frustrated upon hearing the news, especially with the world on the brink of ending. Jo is concerned about their baby, but James lashes out, angry that she chose to share this news during such a moment. He admits he cannot even celebrate because the thought of everything ending is too much to bear. He tells her he doesn't want to feel the pain of losing everything. The story shifts back to the present. While driving, Rose notices that James's hand is bleeding. Concerned, she offers him one of her socks to use as a makeshift bandage. As she wraps the wound, Rose hesitates and then confesses that she believes she will go to hell. She shares a story about a bully who tormented her. One day, in frustration, she wished for the bully to die, and shortly after, the bully was diagnosed with leukemia and passed away. Rose believes her wish caused it. James gently reassures her, telling her it wasn't her fault and that some things happen by chance, not because of her wishes. As they continue driving, James spots a police car parked outside a library. A family steps out of the car, and James decides to approach them with Rose, hoping they might take care of her. However, when James speaks to them, the woman coldly tells them to leave. The man, standing silently with a gun in his hand, looks visibly distraught. James quickly realizes what the family is planning to do. Eventually, James and Rose arrive at the party. Nervous, Rose tightly grabs James's hand as they enter the crowd. Inside, the party is loud and chaotic, with people dancing, drinking, and making noise. Some were blasting loud music, while others were shouting and causing a ruckus. Rose, overwhelmed by the atmosphere, clings to James as he carefully navigates through the crowd. Eventually, James meets his friend Freddie, who is hosting the party. James asks about his ex-girlfriend Vicky, who is Freddie's sister. Freddie informs him that they had completed their earlier preparations. James follows Freddie into another room where people are engaged in wild, inappropriate activities. To distract Rose, James hands her a bowl of chips and goes off to look for Vicky. Suddenly, a woman approaches Rose, claiming to be her mother. Alarmed, James steps in and protects Rose from the woman. Finally, James finds Vicky, who immediately shows interest in being intimate with him. To make room, she insists James leave Rose behind. Reluctantly, James takes Rose to the poolside and asks her to stay there before following Vicky. In a private room, Vicky and James lie on a bed and take a powdery substance to heighten their experience. However, James is unable to enjoy it as memories of his sister and her family's deaths flood his mind. He becomes visibly upset, but Vicky remains unaffected. She tells James that nothing matters anymore since everyone is going to die soon anyway. Hearing this, James feels guilty about his behavior towards Jo that morning. To lift his spirits, Vicky takes him to the basement. Meanwhile, by the pool, Rose encounters the same woman who had earlier claimed to be her mother. The woman pulls Rose aside and offers her a pill, saying it will help her relax. Frightened, Rose hesitates and tells the woman she'll only take it if she promises to take her to her aunt's house. Meanwhile, in the basement, Vicky tells James that Freddie has completed building the bunker. She explains that it has been stocked with enough supplies to last a year. However, James isn't pleased. He remarks that the bunker isn't deep enough to protect them from the storm hitting later that day. Outside, the medicine starts to take effect on Rose. She begins to enjoy herself amidst the crowd, but under the influence, she starts experiencing strange hallucinations. Back in the bunker, when Vicky learns that James had gone to see Jo earlier, she confronts him. She sarcastically questions how he could leave to meet Jo instead of being with his family during such desperate times. Mocking him at first, she then breaks down, admitting that she's terrified of dying. James tries to comfort her, but Vicky starts insisting on intimacy. Frustrated, James tells her that he doesn't know what to do anymore, and that's why he came to the party in the first place. At that moment, Freddie shows up, noticing Vicky crying. He asks James why she's upset. James angrily lashes out at Freddie, accusing him of filling Vicky's mind with false hope of survival in the bunker. After arguing, James storms out, leaving Freddie behind with Vicky. Vicky tells Freddie that James thinks the bunker is useless. Hearing this, Freddy becomes furious and storms out, yelling as he goes after James. Outside, James finds Rose vomiting and sees the crazy woman clinging to her again, still insisting that Rose is her daughter. James pulls the woman away from Rose. Just then, Freddy shows up, holding a gun and accusing James of ruining their happiness. The crazy woman tells Freddy that Rose is her daughter and demands he return her. Freddy, now siding with the woman, orders James to hand Rose back to her. James continues to push the woman away, protecting Rose. At that moment, Vicky arrives and takes the gun from Freddy. She points it at James, but instead of shooting him, she turns and shoots the crazy woman. The gunshot shocks the partygoers, but after a brief moment of panic, they return to their revelry as if nothing happened. Vicky tells James to leave, so he picks up Rose and heads outside. However, when they reach his van, he finds it surrounded by other cars. Left with no choice, James carries the unconscious Rose to a nearby tunnel. There, he gives her some water and tries to help her recover. Soon, James spots a man near a car, drunkenly singing and completely unaware of his surroundings. Seizing the opportunity, James steals the car and drives away with Rose. James finally reaches his mother's house. Together, James and his mother take care of Rose, changing her clothes and trying to bring down her fever. James's mother scolds him, reminding him that he had vowed never to return. She asks why he came back. James explains that he came to drop off Rose, but her condition forced him to stay. His mother then asks about his sister. James lies, saying he hasn't met her. His mother reveals that she went to his sister's house the previous day, but no one answered the door. She assumes her daughter has become selfish because she doesn't let her meet her granddaughter and blames her son-in-law for everything. Not wanting his mother to think badly of his sister, James lies again, saying that his sister has gone somewhere with her family. He then asks his mother where his car is. She criticizes him, saying that trying to save the child is a pointless effort. James retorts, saying he just wants to help Rose, and if she doesn't understand, that's her problem. His mother finally reveals that the car was stolen. Despite their argument, they both laugh at the absurdity of the situation. His mother then asks James to find a gas can in the storage room. While searching, James asks her what her plan is before the world ends. She casually replies that she just wants to finish her puzzle game. Shortly after, Rose regains consciousness. James helps her back into the car and goes to say goodbye to his mother. She tells James that she's proud of him for what he's doing for Rose. Insisting he leave quickly, she bids him farewell. As they drive, Rose apologizes to James for being tricked by the woman at the party. James reassures her, telling her to forget about it. He explains that her father wouldn't want to see her upset. Hearing this, Rose smiles. Soon, James and Rose reach Rose's house. Overjoyed, Rose runs inside, calling for her father and family. However, upon entering, she finds the house empty. After searching every corner, Rose becomes puzzled and assumes that everyone might have gone to the nearby lake. She runs in that direction. Meanwhile, James walks into the forest where he finds the bodies of Rose's father and her entire family. Saddened, James stops Rose from seeing the scene and gently tells her that her family is gone. Rose insists on seeing her father, so James carries her to the spot. When he sets her down, she asks to confirm it's truly her father. To ease her pain, James moves her father's body closer. Rose recognizes her father and breaks down, crying. James asks her to leave the spot, but she refuses, saying her father had promised that they would all be together when the world ended. Together, James and Rose carry her father's body to the lake. There, they adorn the body with flowers. James gives Rose a family photo he found on her father's body and shares a personal revelation. He tells her that he was going to become a father as he had gotten a woman pregnant. Rose asks if the pregnant woman was more beautiful than Vicky. James smiles and says yes. The two hug each other and say their goodbyes. James drives away, leaving Rose behind. Rose chases the car until it disappears from sight. Inside the car, James begins to cry. The fiery storm is just minutes away. James drives as fast as he can toward the beach, but the car overheats, forcing him to run through the blistering heat. When James reaches Joe's beach house, he finds it empty. Desperate, he sprints toward the beach and sees Joe standing there, staring at the terrifying firestorm approaching the shore. James approaches her, but she angrily pushes him away, furious that he had left her alone earlier. James apologizes and confesses his love for her. Joe tearfully admits she loves him too. They embrace tightly and kiss, holding on to each other as the firestorm engulfs the beach. Joe marvels at the beauty of the storm in her final moment. The two disappear into the flames together, and the story ends.